how's it going? It's me, Bo, back here on the Film Scene Investigation channel. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Well, it's another review, and today I'll be checking out the 1984 crime drama, The Pope of Greenwich Village. Now, it's been a while since I've reviewed a Mickey Rourke movie on this channel. Previously, I've reviewed Year of the Dragon, Heaven's Gate, A Prayer for the Dying, and I'd heard about this film before. Never seen it. I saw the trailer online, and kind of felt in the mood, so I ended up watching it. Before we get into the review, guys, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. If you like the content that I do here, all the support is greatly appreciated. So, The Pope of Greenwich Village from 1984 was directed by the filmmaker Stuart Rosenberg and was based on the novel by Vincent Patrick. While this movie has indeed gone on to become a cult classic, during the time of its release, it was considered a flop, basically a failure, given the fact that the film only recouped around about $6 million at the box office when the actual production cost was around about $8 million. As for the narrative, the movie focused on the character Charlie Moran, who was played by actor Mickey Rourke. He was a guy that lived in New York City as a maitre d', and, he certainly worked hard for his money. He was constantly staying on top of things, making sure his customers were satisfied. He took his job seriously, whereas his cousin Paulie, who was played by actor Eric Roberts, was basically the complete opposite. The character of Paulie, he was quick-tempered, to say the least. He was very animated, and it was quite clear from the very beginning that his heart wasn't in waiting tables for a living. He had dreams and big ambitions. He felt that he was destined for bigger and better things, and that he was, just basically wasting his time in a restaurant. Anyways, it was soon discovered that Paulie had been skimming tips from the customers and, not telling anyone, basically stealing from the restaurant. And as you can imagine, once that was discovered, he and his cousin Charlie were suddenly fired. One moment, they're working hard in this busy restaurant, serving tables and all that kind of stuff. The next, they're suddenly out on the street, jobless, with suddenly no prospect of getting any money. It was a really silly thing for Paulie to do. Stealing tips from customers. That kind of stuff, eventually you're going to get found out. But not only did he jeopardize his own future, he jeopardized his cousins as well. And for Charlie, he already had a kid called Vinny who he had to provide for. He was struggling, doing his best that he could, but suddenly without this maitre d' job, his life was going to be a lot tougher. While I expected to see Charlie have it out with Paulie then and there, maybe even, hit him or something like that, Charlie was kind of restrained. He was angry, of course, but clearly he loved his cousin and he didn't want anything to break their bond or come between them. To add insult to injury, Charlie's girlfriend, Diane, who was played by actress Daryl Hannah, informed him that she was pregnant. This was an unexpected surprise, but only added to Charlie's financial worries. He had a kid to provide for, he had another kid on the way. It was just the completely wrong time to not have a job. And at this point, Charlie was kind of confused about what to do next. Paulie, who was still feeling very guilty about losing Charlie's job, he came up with this idea to get involved with this racehorse syndicate. He told Charlie that it was a surefire way to make some cash. Charlie was, of course, very hesitant at first to even listen to Paulie's idea, simply because his cousin had a track record of these money-making schemes, yet they were never successful. For me, I can see where Charlie's coming from, because just from the way that Paulie acted, he was so kind of animated. I mean, he wasn't, but he almost acted like a cokehead or something like that, a guy on drugs. He was just, high energy all the time. And so with, a guy like that coming up with some money-making idea, yeah, I would be a little bit wary too. Since Charlie was all out of ideas himself and still needed the cash, he reluctantly went ahead and got involved with this syndicate operation that Paulie had told him about. But for them to invest in a racehorse, well, they needed cash. They were basically back to square one. Yet Paulie had another idea to rob this safe from inside this office block that was rumoured to be holding a fortune. The idea was simple. They rob the safe, take the money, and invest it on a racehorse and wait for a bigger return on their investment. Paulie gave all the information to Charlie, telling him all the inside knowledge, all the details, and even recruited a locksmith called Barney simply because the job was too big for just them two to handle. Barney, who was played by actor Kenneth McMillan, was an experienced locksmith. He had the equipment and felt sure that he could, crack the safe. All he needed was time to do it, completely uninterrupted. While Charlie was still kind of trepidatious about the whole thing, once again, he'd come this far and agreed to already, invest in this racehorse idea, so he figured he might as well continue on and rob the safe. So the three men went ahead with the robbery, showing up in a van in the middle of the night, ready to break in to this office. Charlie wasn't exactly in a great mood, but his cousin Paulie, just kept reassuring him, it's going to be fine, we're going to do this, we're going to get the cash. He was in high spirits, all the time. Once the trio got into the office, successfully broke in, well, the work began, and we started to see Barney, drilling the safe as the guys just, stood back and watched. Cracking a safe, I mean, that whole thing was a very slow process, and yet the guys had not a minute to spare. As the clock ticked away, we then saw a plain-clothed police officer enter the building and head upstairs to the office. The cop was a man called Walter Ritter, a corrupt detective who was played by actor Jack Keogh. Ritter was there on that night to collect some money from the same safe that the guys were trying to break into. So Paulie saw the guy coming up the stairs, the drilling stopped and the trio all took cover, hiding behind the shelf. The cop, of course, entered and immediately went to the safe. He saw that the lock had been tampered with, saw the drill holes, and immediately knew that someone had tried to break in. Detective Ritter immediately took out his gun, ready to shoot, whoever it was that was trying to rob the place. But he took a misstep, and out of nowhere, he fell down an elevator shaft, which killed him. It all happened so fast. The guys that were hiding in the back, they were in shock. They literally expected to be caught there and then. Suddenly, the cop was dead. This was supposed to be a simple job, a simple robbery, open the safe, take the contents, invest in a racehorse, and that was it, right? But no, nothing went to plan. And not only did they have a death on their hands, but it was a death of a cop. I mean, there was no way that the authorities were going to just let this one slide. I mean, no way. And so, with those guys knowing that, they were panicked. Charlie didn't know what to do. And to make matters even worse, we found out that the money that was inside the safe actually belonged to a local mafia kingpin called Bedbug Eddie, who was played by the late actor Burt Young. As you can imagine, once this mafia kingpin found out that his money had been taken, well, Charlie, Barney, and Paulie suddenly became public enemy number one. Now, one of the main themes that I picked up on while watching the Pope of Greenwich Village was loyalty and the importance of telling the truth. This was, of course, all told through the relationship between Charlie and Paulie, two cousins that had a very strong family bond. I mean, yeah, it was obvious from the very beginning that these two cousins, they cared for each other. They really did, even though Paulie had a bit of a strange way of showing his affection. Numerous times we saw Paulie lie and cheat, hide things from his cousin, yet Charlie just forgave him. He never held a grudge against his cousin. Through thick and thin, Charlie knew the importance of family, and that's why he remained loyal and just hoped that one day his cousin would follow in his footsteps. With all that said, the movie also didn't shy away from showing the repercussions of having blind faith in someone. As Charlie started out the movie, with the job, with a girlfriend, and by the end of it, he'd lost it all. The Charlie character needed to be more stricter, more firm with his cousin, yet countless times he just forgave him. And, ultimately that was a poor decision on Charlie's part. It was all gone. He lost it all. And, you can put some blame onto Paulie, definitely. But some blame also has to go on Charlie himself. When it comes to the performances, Mickey Rourke really nailed his performance as the charismatic protagonist, Charlie Moran. He felt like, a real guy, just trying to survive the harsh economic conditions of the 1980s. Also, his character was not one-dimensional. Absolutely not. I mean, Charlie had multiple layers to his personality, and all of that, seeing that on show, it made him very endearing to the audience. One moment, he could be angry, frustrated. The next, he could be in tears. And it was that range of emotions on show that really impressed me. For me, Mickey Rourke's best scene had to be the confrontation between Charlie and bedbug Eddie. That whole scene, I absolutely loved it. Here you had two men that absolutely hated each other. You could just feel the animosity between them. With, of course, bedbug Eddie, his money was stolen from the safe. I can understand that he was angry about that. But separately, Charlie's cousin, Paulie, had lost a thumb. So yeah, both guys were extremely angry and were not willing to back down from one another. It was just a great scene. And, that moment at the end where they, clutching hands and Mickey Rourke kind of leans in and declares himself as the Pope of Greenwich Village. He even kind of clutches and then he punches Burt Young's hand. I mean, man, that was just some brilliant acting. You really felt Charlie's anger in that moment. Yet surprisingly, he, kept himself composed. And that's what I really found interesting, because it could have been so easy for, the filmmakers to have had this kind of fight at the end between Charlie and Eddie, maybe, Eddie's henchman or something like that, throwing over tables, and you can just, imagine it. But yeah, they took a different approach, and I thought it worked really well. Because you had Charlie so restrained, it kind of, for me, it really grounded the whole story, because in my eyes, the way that meeting, that confrontation went, that to me felt like how most likely a real confrontation between two people like that would likely go down. As for Eric Roberts, this actor, he really committed to the role of Paulie. a man who was, high energy all the time, and a guy that had some big ambitions. I really like this performance. And to be honest, Eric Roberts was so memorable as Paulie. I kind of think it would be fair to say that he almost overshadowed Mickey Rourke. And, while there were a few scenes that I did feel Eric Roberts kind of went a little bit over the top, for the most part, I thought the actor really committed, and portraying an individual like Paulie, someone that has, so much high energy, as I said, it almost reminiscent of some sort of drug addict, cokehead or something like that, Yeah, that would have been a pretty big challenge for any actor to undertake. So, yeah, credit to Eric Roberts. Growing up, never heard of Eric Roberts. I wasn't aware of him at all. Didn't know he even existed. And it was only really, I guess, the 2008 Christopher Nolan movie, The Dark Knight, the classic movie, that I first was introduced to Eric Roberts. And having now seen some of his earlier work, including The Pope of Greenwich Village, I must say, I am genuinely surprised that Roberts never went on to become a bigger star, like his sister, Julia. Now, I'm not saying that Eric Roberts isn't a successful actor. He's very successful, he's very prolific, still working today, and good for him. But just from seeing the Paulie character and seeing that raw potential on show from Eric Roberts, genuinely, I said, how comes he didn't become a household name, Very, very surprising. I also should mention the brilliant chemistry between Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts, as, these characters were integral to the story, so it was crucially important that the filmmakers cast the right pair of actors. Both Rourke and Roberts, they felt very believable, as if they genuinely had, a real-life family bond. It didn't feel awkward, it didn't feel forced, and in terms of the casting, perfect, absolutely perfect. As for the supporting cast, I thought the actor Kenneth McMillan, who played the experienced locksmith and accomplice to the robbery, was very good in his role. I really liked Barney's characterization because, once again, similar to Paulie and Charlie, he felt like a real person. He was very much in the same predicament that those guys were. He needed cash and he was desperate. I think also giving the Barney character a backstory and, seeing how the repercussions of the robbery impacted his family, it certainly added a lot more weight and significance to the story. The lovely Daryl Hannah played Charlie's pregnant girlfriend, Diane. She was very good in the role, but if I'm going to be honest, overall it was kind of inconsequential. Daryl Hannah did nothing wrong. I mean, she delivered her lines well, and of course she looked beautiful on screen. But if I'm honest, you could have taken her out of the film, inserted another actress, and it would have made no real difference. I also really enjoyed Burt Young's performance as Bedbug Eddie, the sleazy scumbag mafia boss who got his comeuppance at the end of the film. The late Burt Young, even though I guess from what I've heard, stories on set that he was a bit of a arsehole to be around, he wasn't a very nice guy to a lot of people in real life, he certainly played that scumbag villain role very well. And so I can totally understand why he was typecast in those types of roles. The only downside for me when it comes to him and this movie was that I don't feel that he featured enough. Before we get to dislikes, I also want to quickly mention the actress Geraldine Page, who played the character Mrs. Ritter, the mother of the detective, the corrupt cop who died in the elevator shaft. So the cop died at the scene, and once, the dead body was found, the authorities came knocking, looking for answers from Mrs. Ritter. Now, the reason I bring this up, and what I found so interesting, was that Geraldine Page, the actress, she only had 2 scenes in the entire film. That was it, just 2 scenes. Yet I actually was surprised to find out that she was actually nominated for an Academy Award based on this performance. When I heard this, I had to actually go and, double check myself, because it just seemed very far-fetched. Now, I'm not saying that Geraldine Page didn't do a good job. She did. She really did. But it was such a limited, minor role. I mean, literally 2 scenes and that was it. Really, really surprised that the Academy would go on to award her a nomination based on, such little material. Geraldine Page, she absolutely made the most of her screen time, and good for her. It just was really surprising to know that the Academy would award her for such a small performance. It didn't make sense to me. And so, dislikes for The Pope of Greenwich Village from 1984. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be its overall length, as for me, it simply just felt way too long. In one way, I did appreciate, the filmmakers giving this long, drawn-out story with lots of characterization. I mean, this was a very character-driven story, and that was good, don't get me wrong. But taking a step back and looking at the overall film, there were just a number of scenes that easily could have been removed. I mean, one scene, for example, would be when Paulie went to visit his dad in the hospital. They had this conversation in the hallway, went back and forth for a few minutes. But was it really that important? Yes, it gave us a little bit of more insight into Paulie and, his background. But yeah, I mean, it was just another 2 or 3 minutes, added to a very long runtime. Well, how about the subplot with Paulie having all the trouble with the traffic cop after his car got towed away? Paulie ended up using a laxative and there was some kind of comedic elements to it, and I'm not, bashing the comedy. That's fine. It was handled well, but did it really make any real impact to the overall narrative? Not really. The main bulk of this story was the robbery and the investment, into the horse racing syndicate. That was it. And that was more than enough for us to, be invested and keep interested in the story. So to me, it was like the filmmakers just adding extra stuff, extra scenes that kind of weighed down my overall experience. As I said, unnecessary, and just a tighter, more leaned runtime, I think, would have probably made the film a lot more enjoyable. Another dislike I had was the lackluster score by the composer Dave Grusin. Now, for me, this felt very paint by numbers. It didn't feel like a lot of creative effort had gone into this score. I'm not too familiar with the composer's other work, but look, there was nothing wrong. I guess this was more of a nitpick than a dislike, because the score didn't ruin my enjoyment, didn't ruin the film, but I've watched a lot of films, and as we know, a great score, a great soundtrack, that can really elevate the material, the visuals that we see on screen. And I used the word earlier, but the score was very inconsequential. It really didn't, there was no real kind of identity there. And it could have been so much more. So that was a disappointment. I guess the only thing that saved it was the inclusion of the Frank Sinatra songs at the beginning, middle, and end of the film. At least that kind of, gave the music some sort of identity. So, ratings for The Pope of Greenwich Village from 1984. I'm going to be rating this movie a solid 6.5 out of 10. The Pope of Greenwich Village was an entertaining drama with its exploration into family bonds and low-level crime. As expected, the great Mickey Rourke once again delivered a brilliant performance in the leading role, though with that said, I would actually say that his co-star Eric Roberts was even more impressive. Their on-screen chemistry was fantastic, really believable, and it kind of reaffirmed the themes the film had of loyalty and the importance of family respect. Ultimately, The Pope of Greenwich Village was a story about two cousins that, were just trying to survive, in New York. They really were. They were desperate, wanting cash, and they made multiple bad decisions. But having that, or the characters doing that in such a gritty urban environment, well, yeah, it was the perfect combination. If you've seen The Pope of Greenwich Village, then please let me know your thoughts and memories in the comment section below. For all those who haven't, this is 100% a recommendation from me. I feel that you should be prepared for somewhat of a long film, but that said, it's worth a watch, absolutely. And for any Mickey Rourke fans out there that may have kind of missed this one, definitely go check it out. And well, that's all from me today, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed this review of The Pope from Greenwich Village from 1984. I'll be back next week, of course, with another cult movie review. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the content that I do here. And of course, take care, guys.